carjacking suspect after East Los Angeles chase. Stop for a moment and talk to another driver, then continue driving. The suspect was driving recklessly, speeding in and out of lanes without stopping at red lights through city streets, before hitting several vehicles and continuing to drive. He was at a loss as to which direction to drive before choosing the road. He didn't want to wait because there were cars stopped at the red light, so he drove in the other direction of the road to continue driving without stopping. A man led authorities on a chase after stealing a work vehicle in East Los Angeles on Monday, December 9th. A man driving a stolen vehicle through East Los Angeles was pursued by Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies. The suspect was weaving in and out of lanes through city streets, circling multiple vehicles around 12:30 p.m. The driver then stopped in the middle of the street and backed out before taking off again.
Sheriff's Department, and oh yeah, that is Sheriff's Department now pulling up right behind it. The door open is a good sign, but does that mean this is over? You know what? That vehicle might have some flat tires. While we were talking, I saw a sheriff's vehicle stopped in the middle of the road. It did look like they threw out some spike strips, so that might be part of that reason. Well, I'm not blaming the spike strips, but the maneuverability on that truck when he made that turn there onto 64th Street off of Hooper. You know, you saw it. We saw it. He crashed into some parked cars. I always feel bad for anybody that's parking on the street and that happens to him. But, you know, that might be part of it. Maybe those tires were going down and that driver was having trouble turning that vehicle. Now, the door is open. You can see the officers. They have their weapons out. But is this over? No, because that vehicle could still drive away even with those flat tires. Now, that driver clearly, I would venture to say, maybe a little inebriated, something going on there because of the fact the way he's been driving, and also we've seen him stop and actually talk to other people right before we went live. But right now, though, the Sheriff's Department, they're having a little bit of an issue. How are they going to stop it? Now, in the past, we've had people ask me things like, well, why don't they just pull somebody up in front of them? You know, they can't do that. They have their policies out here, and if you put a deputy in the way of harm, then if something happens, it becomes a very complicated situation because you're placing that deputy in the way of harm. There you go. Oh. Doors closed, Roxia. I was betting on that. Now it's starting to move again, but you can see that truck kind of leaning off to the passenger side, so I'm venturing to say probably has at least one flat tire.
Yeah, and stopped once again. Didn't get very far at all. So it does look like the vehicle is leaning, right? To me, from this vantage point at least, it looks like it's leaning a little bit to the right.
Definitely leaning. It looks like it's leaning to the right until we actually see it. we never want to guess, because whenever I guess it, I usually guess wrong. But right now, though, you can see it. It does definitely look like it's leaning. Let's see what the deputies are doing. They're kind of just playing catch-up. They're going to stay behind him there. And again, you've got some people out front, and this guy clearly doesn't have a clue what's going on out there. But I worry about any time a pedestrian gets out in front, especially a big truck like that, and that driver driving in that erratic way. So right now, it's going to be this kind of game of hopscotch. Those deputies, I do feel for them, because every time that vehicle stops, they've got to get out. They've got to do their process. They've got to, pull their weapons, get in a defensive position. They're making their call-outs, but there you go. So now, what do you got to do? Back in your car again, and it's going to continue on. Now, are they going to chase it? That's the question, because they basically backed off, and they were just letting the helicopter, the LAPD helicopter, make the calls. Just tell them where this vehicle is. So they might get back into that type of position. I would venture to say the slow and go, stop and go, those deputies are going to stay very close by. This thing getting farther and farther away from us. Hopefully, he's going to make a choice here and make a turn either to the north or the south, and maybe hopefully get a little bit closer. But you see some people over there, they are actually, I would hope to say that he's taking pictures out there. It's a little bit off at a distance, and it is very hazy.
Those look like just people out on the street approaching the car, well, from a distance, but just walking up to it,
right,
just curious, trying to figure out what's going on, right? Those aren't police officers.
Those were definitely not police officers, and I venture to say there were some folks out there with their cell phones just trying to get a picture or see what's going on out there. Very dangerous situation. Of course, we don't know, because they did say the words carjacking. So just because this guy is a little erratic, doesn't have a shirt on, doesn't mean he's not armed. And of course, we're not privy to any of what the weapon was in that carjacking. So right now, though, it's still a very dangerous situation, a very serious situation. And those deputies, every time that vehicle stops, you're going to watch them. They got to do that same dance that they have to do. And there's that skateboarder again. This is just one of those things. You're in a residential neighborhood, so you're going to have residents. There you go. You have a deputy ready to move if it is safe. You got an officer right out there off of, I believe that's going to be Compton and or Central. Sorry, that's going to be Central. So right now, though, it's still a very kind of standoffy type of situation. And of course, those deputies, they're going to be concerned about the people in that neighborhood. Got people crossing the street. You got another person right there in that center crosswalk. But again, how do you bring this thing to an end? It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Authorities attempted to deploy a spike strip around 12:35 p.m. About 2 minutes later, the driver crashed into parked vehicles and then came to a stop near Huber Street and East 64th Street. The truck appeared to be disabled. Several sheriff's deputies approached the truck and the man surrendered.